Why is everybody else winning? Why is everybody else able to buy the new F-150s, which I would have died to have back in those days? There's a decade from like 2008, I would say, to 2018 that we lost a whole decade of distraction. We literally missed an entire runway, a beam 37 feet long. Guess what happens? That beam cost, what was it, $4,000 or $5,000 to ship that one beam from Indiana to Phoenix, Arizona.
You got to be talking the whole time. Just chill.
Tell.
Good grief. But no, hey,
Not sure
Darren. Hey, Darren.
A conversation helps.
Maybe if you let me talk for 2 seconds.
We met one-on-one with a number of customers. We said, look, we love you, but this other stuff that you're having us do for you, it's not what we do anymore.
Is a dealer worth the percentage they take? I would say no. And try doing that through a dealer. I have done it, and it sucks.
How can we sell a $1 million crane system in Georgia? It's a lot easier than you think.
I was the lid to the business. I was not growing, and it was arrogance. It was me not growing, period. I noticed we had the crane over there that was shipping at this time. Welcome to the Forge. It's good to be back with my two guests, my two brothers, my business partners, Darren and Kyle. This morning, they have no idea what we're talking about this morning yet, but we're going to dive into the shift from local fabricator to national player in our industry, which is the goal. It's what we're striving to be, as a national player and authority in our industry of material handling, cranes, mezzanines, fall protection, those kind of things. So it's kind of funny. I was talking with one of my friends from Florida a couple weeks ago. He loves naming off. I know what you guys do. I got it. Overhead cranes, mezzanines, fall protection. I got you, Ryan. That's my buddy James Crocker. Was telling me that last week. He's like, he loves, like, it's working. The message is out there, but we didn't start there by any means. And so I want to do a little recap. And I know that we did our episode on the history of PBI, how we started, what our dad started in '79, and all that. So I want to go back there just a little bit without repeating a lot. But I want to do a little bit of a recap about the early years of farm repairs, fixing construction trailers, manure spreaders, combines, the occasional structural fabricated piece. What do you guys remember from those days? Let's go back there for a minute because we're talking about how we got from that local fab shop, farm repair, Paul's Welding and Repair. It wasn't always PWI, right? So, what do you guys remember from those days? Give me. I have some. I wrote some things down last night that I was thinking about the things that we used to do, but I'm curious what you guys think of first. First thing you think of, one thing, Kyle.
From the old days?
From the old days.
I think of fixing broken farm equipment that came in, like Tom Farms or something like local company, a big local farmer here.
Yeah.
Coming in, and it's always, what I remember about fixing farm equipment was it's always complicated and difficult, and it's always right now. It needed to have done right away. And so that was the things I remember were twisted up things that rolled over or whatever came in. And you got to, find out what you can scab together with some plates and grind, torch, heat up, bend, and scab things back on and weld them together to somehow get out the door, paint it up if you have some matching spray paint, and go on with life.
Yeah.
That's what I remember.
Darren, what were some memories from you?
I want to start off this morning by thanking God that I arrived here alive, because I drove with Kyle down here and to the podcast room
So
in
we're starting
Warsaw.
with gratitude. Okay.
Gratitude, yes. I'm thankful for life and thankful for safety and health and
I think Darren
anyhow,
has to be one of the
Kyle
most...
was on the phone while driving, which is against the law also. So I'm not reporting that. I'm just saying that I'm thankful to be alive.
I can neither confirm nor
There's a reason why I come an hour early and I don't have a loan. So
I verbally reprimanded him several times, which he did not listen to me.
I find that hard to believe.
And so anyhow, so just thank you. I'm here.
Okay. What do you recall from the early days?
I recall cutting off. I recall shortening bulldozer tracks, cutting those down and splicing those when they were stretched out too far. I recall cutting edges of skiller buckets.
That's a good memory.
We used to do that fairly often. You guys could come in, so you take a torch and you cut off. It's fully welded, so you cut off all the weld, 6 foot across, cut it all off, and it would take probably at least an hour and a half to cut it off, get it all cleaned up at least, and then we'd cut new cutting edge, which it's got a taper on it and a flange, and it's like an AR plate, and so you weld that all back on.
Pre-beveled cutting edge. So we call it cutting edge, but that's what the industry calls it. But every guy with a skid loader bucket. It's the front edge of the skid loader bucket that gets bent. And
aren't some of them bolted on?
They are sometimes, yeah. But anyhow, so that's one thing I remember, and obviously a host of other things. I also remember farmers coming in. I might have said this earlier too, but farmers coming in the morning, and often Randy would come in he was Faulkner Farms, but he would come in and he would he had no shirt on, he had cut off jeans, and
real class act,
and and great guy. And he taught me some life advice that I didn't listen to all of it, but he's a great guy. And he would come in the morning and said he's up since 5 o'clock already, and he'd had a Mountain Dew, and he'd grab a Mountain Dew and a Reese's for breakfast.
Yeah. So we also had back in those days, good memory, Darren. We also in those days had. At one point, we had fountain drinks for all the farmers to come in and the customers to come in and grab Mountain Dew, Diet Coke, it was actually Diet Pepsi, and we had that. We always had a candy display, 50 cents for a Reese's cup or for a Snickers bar, whatever it was. We when our friends would visit us at the little welding shop with 4 employees in there, and it was always a highlight because we had candy there, and us kids got it for free, so we didn't pay a whole lot for it. So anyhow, so a couple of things I remember as well. So let me say this. There was decades. It took us decades. Okay, I want our listeners to get this, because wherever you're at out there, you're struggling, you're stuck, and you're wondering why you're not getting ahead, why you're not making money. We were there, guys. We were absolutely there. I remember asking these questions: why is everybody else winning? Why is everybody else able to buy the new F-150s, which I would have died to have back in those days? My first one, it was a '97 completely wrecked F-150 I fixed up and welded together myself. No joke.
I bought it from you later.
And then Kyle bought it from me.
Then I left it. It got stuck driving around my sister's place, and it sat out there and stuck. Frozen in the ground for like 6 months.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yep.
Kyle really took care of my nice truck. But anyhow, but prior to us figuring out who we are and what we did and all that, there was decades of discovering who we were. And prior to the RV industry boom, we'll talk about it a little bit here later, there was things I remembered were grain elevator and downspout work. We'd go on site, we'd put in downspouts and grain elevators. We built some bridges, some pedestrian bridges for the city of Bremen and some other places as well.
Still there. I just walked on it.
Yeah, it is still there. We were a job shop, so if it was steel and welding, the answer is yes, we did it. Another memory that I have is in the ag industry is the Canson. Canson's a brand, and they make grain dryers, bin dryers, grain. No, sorry, they're not a bin dryer; they're a grain dryer. And we're not really farmers, but we just fix this stuff.
But Dad was a farmer, and so a lot of that just kind of naturally came to him. He knew he had wrenched and torched and welded on this stuff so many times before too, that when people came and brought things in, it was like talking to another farmer to fix your stuff. Yeah.
They were the go-to dryer back in the day. Now they're obsolete, and
they are. They're too small today. But back in the day, we would just explain what we did. We would go lift the entire top of the dryer off, and then torch off the.
Then we pull out the
base, and we would replace the floor, because the floor with all that wet grain would get rusted out. It's crazy. Another thing that you brought up, I think in another previous episode, was Unifrax pots, and that was a 10-foot or 12-foot diameter pressure vessel essentially. We built that was a little bit later. Dust collection. So again, it wasn't really steel and welding, but it was steel material, and we would go into factories and we would install ductwork, which is kind of an HVAC mechanical thing, but it kind of went with our
Huntington Metal in Huntington, Indiana. They supply it and they make all that stuff.
Yeah.
We would install it, but they also install it themselves too. So we finally figured out that they're better at it than us.
We did, but again, all we were doing back there is trying to feed the family and make a living and get there. And it was a lot of distracting. The thing I remember too is construction beams for houses. That was back in the mid to late 90s. We thought, hey, we can't sell beams. We were selling some cranes and some industrial stuff, but it was just so hit or miss. We had no marketing. We had no strategy. There were no Google ads or no salespeople at those days. But we thought, hey, we could sell construction beams to all these houses that are being built. And usually every house has one or two, W8, or a W10 beam that spans 37 feet and needs holes drilled in the top. And so we would cut those manually with a saw, and we would drill holes with a mag drill, and we would sell. And so we come up with a For
Price per pound.
Willie's Oakbrook Homes was a connection that I had made, and we were able to sell them beams with the price per pound. So every week we'd start getting orders for that. Anyhow, just some
One cool thing about that
some
was
history there about how we got
right.
there.
One thing,
yeah.
one cool thing about that is we for Willie's, and also we did for Miller Brothers for years. In Brookholder buildings, we did beams,
Big
and,
C.
and we would just and we would just have a price per pound for the standard beams, but that made it easy for them to price.
Yeah.
Which kind of came into play later then.
Yeah, it does. I think we were, we early on saw the beauty.
Kyle wants to say something.
I'll get you to Kyle 1 second. We saw the beauty, to Darren's point,
Darren.
of we have brotherly love going on over here with
Sweet
trying to
Kyle.
interrupt each other, which rarely happens.
I
I'm
didn't
kind of
see
shocked
that.
by it. So we have.
I can't forget what I was going to say now.
So what we have going on here is the easy button idea. And so even back in that day, I had this vision. We had this vision of what can we do to make it easy for them? I think we make it easy for them to price our beam. It's a W8 by 18 by 27 foot long times 57 cents a pound. Instantly, they had a price, and that included cutting, drilling, and painting.
Yeah, not that was a revolutionary idea, but for us, it was a. I mean, I'm saying we're not saying that was a great. It was just It was like a light bulb. Hey, we made it easy for them, and they would just call and buy stuff.
So actually, they would not call. They actually
would just send purchase orders.
They would send a fax.
They would fax purchase
order,
order.
yeah, which was like so magical for us because in the middle of us welding a skid loader bucket out there, the fax would roll in. We'd a $1,200 order for 2 beams, and it was just magic. Go ahead.
So
Kyle.
basically, what I think I like to zoom out from this here, because we kind of went way full tilt into like a specific job, but the difference when you're a general fabrication shop, which there are thousands and thousands in the U.S. general fabrication shops, and when you're when you are doing that as your job, usually on your website, I was just on a website this morning, actually looking at a local company, and you'll list the pieces of machinery that you have. You'll list. I have a Hydmec saw. I have an AccuShear, an AccuBrake press. I have this. I have that, and that's what I have. That's my abilities.
Yep.
And it's saying I'll do anything. I'll do anything with the machines that I have. And it's not bad because for some, in a lot of situations, that's the best thing. That's what customers
There's
need.
a lot of huge companies that do that.
And there's a lot of small companies that are doing well with that general fab. Yeah. But for us, and it's the exact same way for us, was here's what we could do. Here, we had a little hand punch that was one of my main jobs, was just punching construction beams. I did it all the time. We upgraded from mag drill.
We went from a mag drill to a punch.
Well,
I
you
forgot
could
about
only
that.
go up to 7/16 thick flanges.
Up to a certain-
but
I forgot all about that.
Diameter hole. Wasn't that
No, it's how thick you could get the punch on. You can get any diameter.
I think it's
hole.
7/16 and
You can do-
7/16.
You can
But
do
it couldn't-
13/16 hole. Yeah.
It couldn't punch too big a hole and too thick a plate.
It's usually not an issue. Is the thickness.
All right, so-
all I'm trying to say is when you're a general fab shop, you think anything that's coming into me is good because I have the capability of doing this here. Therefore, anything that comes in that I could physically do is the winner.
Yeah.
And really, obviously, where we're going here is it's not necessarily the winner.
Yeah.
You need to know what you're good at. You need to know what you suck at. And so,
Which is where we're going exactly.
Yeah.
So how do we? So I'm trying to show a little bit of history, and I guess I always want to give hope. I so clearly remember those days, those years, and I want to give hope to the people out who are struggling, who feel like they don't have a plan. They're waiting for the daily bread of coming in. They're waiting for that call, somebody to find that website, would see that they have a press break, and they can do that. We have kind of went completely the other direction and made it all about the customer. Our new marketing, stuff is about conquering your space. It's about the customer, conquer your space. And so it's not about us. We don't mention one piece of equipment or machinery. To Kyle's point, I always notice that everybody does that. I never really quite got that, but it's okay. The point is that
It was helpful for me this morning when I was looking at that local fab shop.
fair enough.
When you're just looking for capabilities and who can do what, that's nice. But then that's really the value that they have.
So diving into, we're going to fast forward now into late 90s, early 2000s. And what really happened there is kind of an explosion of the boom of the RV industry. Okay. And so that's really, I'm talking about the birth of our product line a bit here now. So as we were doing all that other junk, on top of that, we started saying yes
Not junk.
Sure. A manure spreader is kind of junky. I mean, but we did it. We were happy with it. But when I say junk, I really mean all the miscellaneous distractions, honestly, that fed us bread, but we didn't have discipline at all. We just said yes to everything, and that was fine. And a lot of people can have to do that. That's okay. But at some point, you got to figure out who you are, and we'll get there. But talking about the RV industry, so if any of you guys,
Brian, before you go to the RV industry, seriously, sure. I think it's very important to understand for the listeners to understand why that is bad. Why is it bad to do everything for all?
Trust me, before you go to RVs, I assure you we're going to get there. There's a whole lesson on that. I assure you.
Kyle, just wait.
I do have a lesson. We'll talk very, very clearly about the hedgehog principle, about good to great and all that coming up soon. But I want to give a little bit of the history and the path that we had to follow, the brutal path to get there. And it started with the RV industry. So I always tell people, do you guys have a camper? Do you guys have a Jayco, a Keystone, a Thor motor coach, a Newmar motorhome, a little Jayco pop-up camper? Everybody usually has some experience with an RV. Almost all of them are built in our backyard in Elkhart County, Indiana, and we're very blessed that our father started the business, just a few miles south of there. And so we started serving those customers, and they needed cranes. They needed to lift roofs onto RVs. They needed to flip an RV upside down. They needed to have a work platform, mezzanine, platform structure, scaffolding as they called it back in the old days. And they needed all those things. Okay, they needed all those things, and that's really what I would call the birth of our product line. When the RV industry started demanding that we get bigger and we provide these products for them, that's when we started. We didn't even see it for a while, but I'm saying in the early 2000s, we started building all this stuff, and it started informing what we were actually really, really good at.
I'll add to this. I agree with that, but so we started in '79. Dad started in '79, and I am not saying, definitely, we are not saying that we caught on to all this stuff fast enough. And I'm not trying to knock, Dad in any way. I'm just saying, and part of it was on us. It was me. We didn't see it all. We could have done this. We could have narrowed things down way before. It took us, honestly, a long time to figure that out. Long time.
Absolutely.
Brutally long. So the biggest thing that I want to say too is I talk to a lot of business owners, and it's amazing to me sometimes when I'm talking to someone that they're just talking about their business. And they're not asking about mine. They're not, and I'm not hurt by that. I'm just saying you don't learn that much talking about your own.
Amen.
If you and the biggest thing I'll tell you, Ryan and I met with a business owner 7 years ago, and we sat down. We talked to him. I'm not gonna say who it was, and he talked, and we wanted to learn from him. We left there not impressed. We left there not impressed with what the business plan. And we're thankful for the time, but I'm saying is listen, but you have to add, but you have to ask, how do you do this? How do you do that? Talk to someone that's doing something different and bigger and better than you, and then you learn, and you also learn that it's not easy. Yeah. It's not, nothing's easy, nothing's free or easy. But you don't when you're talking to somebody, you just talk about yourself and what you're doing, how you're doing it. You didn't learn anything. You just told them how you're doing, and you definitely. I am not doing everything. We are not doing everything the best that we can, and you learn a lot more by listening than you talking.
I admit all the time that
my brothers don't understand that.
Yeah,
I clearly do.
I would. Yeah, it's a good.
Even the Bible says, "Listen twice as much as you speak, or listen more than you speak." And I would encourage, like Darren said, listen to other people, learn from people. Don't There's a book that says, "Never eat lunch alone." Hang out with other people who are ahead of you on the journey and doing it. So I want to talk next about kind of this transition. We're in the RV industry. We're doing now overhead crane and hoist systems, small, 1/2 ton, 1 ton, 2 ton stuff, nothing big, but we're doing that stuff. We're doing mezzanines and stairways for these guys. We're doing fall protection, safety equipment for these guys. We're doing this stuff now. But then 08 hits, and so I want to talk about bad diversification versus good diversification. Okay, and everybody's like, you got to diversify. You got to diversify that your portfolio. You got your personal finances in business. You got to be diversified. Well, I want to talk about the bad way that we did that in 07, 08, 09, and so what happened in 08? Everybody knows what happened, but it crashed. So nobody was camping. Nobody was buying motorhomes and campers and RVs in 08 because it was was the Great Recession, right? It was a train wreck. It was a nightmare. And so in those years, RV industry is usually the first to go down.
The average unemployment rate around the country was 10% at the peak of '08 crisis, and in Elkhart County it was 20%.
Yeah.
It was double as
It was double as bad. Is that good English? It was twice as bad as what the rest of the country was, and we felt that deeply. So guess what? Ryan and all his great wisdom, and the rest of us. I mean, Kyle, you were pretty young very young in those days. But Dad and I basically said we got to diversify. We got to find more business. And so I would call our first attempt at diversification bad. Okay, we said let's do even more things. Let's grab a shotgun and birdshot out and do whatever we can to feed families. Okay, and in those days we were probably a dozen people there, whatever it was. And so in those years, and so we said let's do more construction work. Let's diversify into all kinds of contractor work where we'll do
steel fabrication.
Steel fabrication, but we were doing all
columns, beams, barges,
and custom railing and custom stairways, architectural work. Let's bid on church projects, commercial work. It didn't end. If it was on a bid,
and we sold stuff, and you have to appreciate that it kept the lights on too.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying there's not times in your life when you had to do that.
Yeah.
But I agree with where you're going.
We were aggressive, and we tried to make it work. It was super, super cutthroat.
Right.
We were getting into a new business that everybody else was already into, and margins were 10% rather than 20%, as they should be, or higher,
yeah.
right? Margins on steel, margins on labor, whatever. It was just really, really freaking tight. But again, it put bread on the table. We're not laughing at those years, but the whole point here is how PBI, the title of the episode here is how PBI got from local to national. And this is part of the story is how did we get there? And so the bad diversification slowed us. It probably lost us a decade. Okay. And so there's a decade from like 2008, I would say, to 2018 that we lost a whole decade of distraction. Okay. We knew what we were good at.
Years, maybe.
I mean, it really wasn't until, 17, 18 that it was probably a full decade that we lost. And maybe we're slow learners. And I always say, I mean, I own that. I mean, I was the president at the time. I was trying to, Dad was still alive and well, but I was running the business essentially. But I was the lid to the business. I was not growing. I was not reading books. I was not having lunches with other people. I was the guy probably talking about our business more than listening to others at that point in my life. And it was arrogance. It was me not growing, period. So let's go forward to the next phase here. So
which year?
Well, we're now in 2017, 2018. That was bad diversification.
2010, along with that, in 2010, I started in sales, and I went to real custom. I went to real, I focused on completely custom stuff, industrial stuff, not the construction beams at all.
Yeah.
But I just completely.
But we had another
custom.
sales guy or two focusing on commercial side as well. So
I was going this way. They were going, structural steel for construction beams and going that way, and we still had RVs going, but it was only a third of the focus.
Yeah. But if you were to walk through our facility in those days, I mean, you could literally see a construction beam, a stair rail for a church, a combine, a manure spreader, and a Unifrax, fabricated pressure vessel. It was so confusing, and we weren't profitable, very profitable at all. Anyhow, so I'll jump into Jim Collins now and his book Good to Great. You guys have all read the book. It's a great book. I don't know that we talk about the hedgehog principle as much as we've just lived it out. Ironically, my dad actually read this book, and he actually bought the CDs, okay, and he gave it to me, and I listened to that early on, back in those days while he was still alive, and probably 11, 12, 13, started forming my opinions on what that means. And so Jim essentially talks about good is the enemy of great, okay? And so there's a lot of good companies out there. He studied a lot of things. Jim Collins studied a lot of other companies and other businesses. I'm going to read some of the things here. Braxton pulled some things up here for me to review here, so I don't butcher this here. But Jim kind of stole his thesis of the book from there's an old essay written by Isaiah Berlin that says the hedgehog and the fox. That's what he compares it to. And it's a Greek parable, but it talks about the fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. Thanks for that, Braxton. So the hedgehog principle helped shape who PBI is today, very, very much so. And it took us a few decades to figure it out. We were slow, but basically in Jim's study, those who led the good or the comparison companies to the great companies were scattered, diffused, inconsistent. Okay, that's what they were. So what is the hedgehog principle? It gets said a lot, and everybody's like, "Well, the hedgehog principle. What does that mean?" So I'm just going to read that clearly here out of Jim's book here. It's very, very simple. Let's not make it confusing. What's a hedgehog? What does a hedgehog do different than a fox? Well, a fox is distracted and it can survive in any atmosphere and do a lot of things. A hedgehog does one thing. It focuses on one thing. So the three circles of the hedgehog principle, basically it's three circles, okay? And in the middle of that circle, there's this hedgehog philosophy here. And
diagram,
the three things are, what are you deeply passionate about? You guys can see the diagram on the screen here. Thanks, Braxton, for that. What are you deeply passionate about, okay? What can you be the best at in the world, okay? And what drives your economic engine, okay? And when I saw that, I was like, man, that's insane. Like, so those three things combined, okay, we feel like became our big three. We call it big three. The big three is often used in the automotive industry as Ford, GM, and Chrysler, but we call it the big three product line. And it's honestly still exactly what we're doing today. Our big three is overhead cranes, so lifting, mezzanines or space, and fall protection, which is safety. So lifting, space, and safety became what we feel we can be the best at in the world. And I think there's some confusion around.
We're not yet, but we're aiming for it.
Yeah, right. And I think that's close. I think Jim talks about that in his book. He says, like, could you be the best at that in the world? You know what I'm saying? You have what it takes. How do you guys feel about that? What as we dive into the discipline now and the laser focus on what I called the big three back in those days, and now it's really our whole website is just dedicated to those three product lines. What do you guys think our advantages are in that? What makes that can be the best at in the world possible to you guys? Darren, I'll start with you. Why is it?
DTC, direct to customer, is our first main advantage. Majorly.
Okay.
Because we customers can call us, we can talk to them, and there's other large companies in each one of those areas that are through a dealer network, and I strongly believe there's a lot of good dealers out there, sure, but on average, is a dealer worth the percentage they take? I would say no. And that sounds whatever. And also you might say, well, yeah, but you guys are, I'm not saying it's to me the consumers want direct. I know this. We know this firsthand. We have tons and tons of stories we could share of what our customers say. They just want to talk to the guys that are building it. They just want to talk, and that over and over and over. And does that mean that all other the ways you do business is wrong? Dealer networks are wrong. Doesn't mean they're wrong and they're not successful. It's just I don't think the customer's experience is as good.
So that's a bit of a rabbit trail. I'm okay with the rabbit trail because everything Darren says is true. But I'm gonna have Kyle actually answer the question. My question is actually why are we the best at in the world at those three things though? Why do you think we're the best?
Totally
in the world
agree with Darren. That's what is probably one of the biggest things that sets us apart.
You really think so?
Oh my goodness, yeah, 100%.
Oh, I agree with you. But I agree with it. But that's how we're going to market.
How are you going to market? For instance, you got to be talking the whole time. Just chill.
Kyle.
Good grief. You go buy a Tesla car right now. You go on the website. If you want financing, if you want to buy it with cash, you go right on there, find the exact price, and click buy, and you get the car. Guess what? The Slate is like 5 minutes from where we're sitting right now in Warsaw. Okay, Slate is doing the exact same thing, and I'm ordering my Slate truck on Wednesday. Is when they allow you the first like I have my spot in line reserved already, but like when you can actually click and decide what you want and click buy, and I'm gonna go on the website and buy it. Okay, and think about this here. Think about how frustrating it has to be for Ford and GM and whoever else to look through like and what those dealers are taking. Now let's say, oh well, we love our dealers. We support our dealers. Of course they do. Of course they have to say that, right?
They have to say that.
But dealers are. If you don't think it's an antiquated model, you're wrong because look at what the new car companies are doing.
Right,
they're getting away from it too. So we're not here the only ones here saying, oh yeah, no, we're not. All industries are changing, and like I said, I've spoken to two manufacturers that are struggling with the same thing that they are very, very frustrated that they can't because they have all these dealer things locked in. They don't know how to switch to direct to consumer. Yeah. But the websites, the internet, has completely changed how you can buy things, and the dealer model is on the way out. It will still be around in some form for a long, long, long time, but it will continue.
It depends on the product, but if it's a service that you're offering or a customized product, it's even way more DTC is the way to go. Like you can understand. There's still there's often people that are working through distribution, then the dealers, and then to the customer.
There's a place for that in some industries, I believe. Like even the hoist industry, our vendors are generally dealer based only, and I think that's healthy because it's not really a completed product for the end user,
right? Right.
And so I was arguing that with my son last night. We were talking about some of that stuff, and I said, look, it's different. I said, the reason why Columbus McKinnon or Street Crane or Stark or other companies we're working with right now, Black Bear. The guys, the hoist and crane component manufacturers that we work with as vendors, they're selling components to a service company like PWI to build and install that end product for the customer. I'm surprised by your guys' answer. I completely agree with you.
That wasn't my only answer.
I completely agree with you. I just feel like there's other advantages we have. One is the fact that we do 3 things for the same manufacturer. That to me is a big deal. Like we could have probably built a successful company with just cranes.
And try doing that through a dealer. I have done it, and it sucks.
Yeah,
because they want to look good to the customer, and then they like, hey, well, and literally, you're right. But just think about that. Going through a dealer is so hard to do because if they just step out of the way, step aside, take the 20%, and go to the bank, it's better for the customer. Because you can't offer all 3 and have a good come to a good solution.
So I feel like my answer to that, my second answer would have been in your first answer. My first answer would be we provide complete packages for manufacturers. That's what I see. So you go in your manufacturing plant, what do you want to build? We love the empty slate. And Kyle, as VP of Sales, I'm surprised that wasn't your answer. It's okay. They're both important. But Kyle loves getting a DWG file of a blank plant from a customer. Him and the sales guys.
We create that for them.
In some cases you do, but there's sometimes you get a blank slate. They're saying we want the slate trucks, for example, who we're hoping to work with. We want our trucks to run sideways down the line. We want to run down straight through the line. We want to have a platform come in here to actually lift the bed on. We want the crane to work with the platform. We want to have a team member who goes down to a pit with a catwalk and a stairway.
It's integration, and it's basically we're an integrator. We're an integrator. Don't think Passenger Solutions. Think a lot less involved in that.
But the problem
we're not doing automation and robotics, but we're bringing a lot of solutions together for people who are building something. I would say we're manufacturers who are serving manufacturers. So when people walk through our plant, they get it. They're like, you guys get what we wrestle with because you're dealing with the same things we are. We have our own products. I think in our own plant.
I think we have our what you could kind of define it as is one of the better in the U.S. One of the better integrators that is not that stop before automation.
Yeah.
So because there's a level to if you wanted to go set up a slate factory, you would hire a Bastion Solutions. For sure. And that makes sense. You have to. We way beyond our capability in a variety of ways. Yeah. Okay. But if you were doing some kind of low level industrial engineering.
Are you calling our customers low level industrial?
No. It's just that it's not automated. Yeah. It's not. Basically, I don't know what the word for that is.
Manual process plant. An automotive plant is fully robotic and automated. Yeah. We're not in that world. No. We're in the world one step back from that in most cases. That doesn't mean we don't do some work for Ford Motor Company.
And we do some automation, but it's just very little.
Right.
Yeah. So the point here is that in back to Jim Collins' book is that most companies don't suffer from finding enough opportunities. We've already proven that. We did it all. We were doing it all. There was opportunity everywhere we went, and even going into the commercial, structural steel market, we found opportunities there. And so companies don't suffer from having enough opportunity. They have to make the hard decision, of what to say no to, so that's usually what companies suffer from is the opposite of what you would think. I think every new business owner says, man, I just need to get opportunity. That's great. But at some point, you got to weed out through all the opportunities and say, that is what I can be really, really good at. And I even think sometimes like HVAC companies who do it all. They do electrical, they do mechanical, they do plumbing. I think there could be in the trades, there could be even more laser focus than there is today.
Yeah, but I also understand why they do that too, is because when you put in, it's kind of like you have to. We put a new HVAC in. We want to replace. You have to have the guys that can run the power. Or
here's an example. I think it's pretty dumb for. I'll just say it. I don't think a contractor company. I think it's a little crazy when you have a crew who builds houses, high end, $1.4 million houses, and then a post frame building the next day, and then a garage for a homeowner over here the next day, and then a community pavilion the next day, and then a church the next day. I feel like that's confusing. I feel like when you're known as the premier builder of your area for high end houses or low end houses or whatever it is,
or commercial, whatever.
When you see somebody get clear about what they do and how they do it, you see them grow. That's how I see it. I see a lot of distracted people, companies, just like us, just like we were a decade ago. And so that's my thing. So here's my question for you guys. What was it? Why was it so scary for us to say no to all the opportunities? I mean, we looked at Jim Collins, we read the book, we said, man, this is crazy. This discipline is really, really hard. But why was it so hard for us and so scary for us to say no?
I think I was just thinking. Thanks, Darren. I was just thinking about the one project that we were working on. You guys remember what's his name? Travis Martin. Okay, I think he brought in a manure spreader, and he wanted to knife stuff in the ground, and he and basically had to build these, like inch and a quarter plate. He actually worked for us for a little bit as well. He became a W-2 employee for a while after that, but he wanted like 6 or 7 like knives to go in the ground, and you force that down the ground 2-3 feet down in, and then it shove manure behind this big truck. It was like an Oshkosh truck. Okay. And it's just a crazy thing. But I remember he brought this thing back in all the time. We'd tinker around with it. We'd charge T&M a little bit more here and there for whatever work we were doing on it. But it took so long. It just
after it was done,
it was working right and blah blah blah, all and on. And the thing that I think is that we didn't talk about with narrowing the product line is the issue. The big issue is you have a whole bunch of, if you are doing anything, you kind of have to have a bunch of extremely talented individuals that can do anything. Okay. Mm-hmm. We were just talking about this with Leon Hulse, who's a friend of ours who just recently came back from the mission field in Thailand. And we recommended him to be to help out one of our friends. But he can just do anything. You give him something, he just does it. There's a lot of people you can think of in your life right now that just do anything. And that's great.
7-foot jumpers, talented.
But no, I'm not saying that. No. I'm saying jack of all trades. I'm saying jack of all trades that could just kind of figure this here out.
There's not a lot of people. You can think of some of those people.
Yeah, no.
But the percentage is much lower.
It is, and especially people that are good at doing anything and efficient at doing anything.
Right.
So the problem is more that when you're doing all these random one-off jobs, you have a couple A-level guys in your shop, and then in some B's and C's that are assisting those guys. But really, you need the A's, and you need to train the A's, and the A's need to have been doing their job for 10 years to even get to be an A at your shop. So it's like this talent level gets so hard to manage because you can't keep on doing the anythings.
Yeah.
That's the big issue, I think, is why narrowing it down is it takes a lot less time for somebody to be really good at building cranes as it does for them to be really good at building anything.
Just like in engineering for us, for when I had hired an engineer, if they were designing, we kind of have it categorized, basically some guys
by product line,
by product line ish, but like there's guys that design custom stairways that can't be automated, customizing, taking automations, we run automations, then we make a few tweaks to them. They do that all day long, every day, and they get really efficient at it really quick because they design stairways versus.
You guys keep taking us on rabbit trails. That's great. It's good rabbit trails, but I still want an answer to the question. Why was it so hard for us to? Why was it so hard for us to say no? Why was it so scary and so hard for us to narrow it in and bring the shotgun approach down to a rifle with a laser focus scope?
First of all, change is always hard. It's always hard, no matter what you're doing. So you're changing what you have been doing to something else. It's always going to feel scary.
Yeah.
but it's also your comfort level. You know, if we say no to this job, that's turning down sales. That's a decision to hurt in the short term for maybe a long term benefit.
Yeah.
And that's what's scary about it. I think is you're
Also
choosing.
pleasing, just serving customers. Like so, if I think I know all of us do. I'm assuming you're a listener here and you're listening to business that you like taking care of customers. And so when you have an existing customer that's giving you orders and you're making good margin on them, and they've been giving you orders for, let's say, 5 years straight, and then you have to decide you don't want to do it anymore. And it's not that I'm not profitable. It's not that you're a bad customer. It's not that you don't pay. All those things that we've had some of those hard conversations. It was hard for us to say. I'm not sure it was that big a deal to the customer, but like my point is like that's what's hard. That is hard, and it should be hard. If that's easy to you, that you don't really care about your customer that much. You should think. You should really think really hard about before you tell a customer, look, we don't want to do that anymore, because that can come across as arrogant. And relationships are more important than. But sometimes hard conversations have to be had, but they shouldn't just be easy if you decide, we're not doing that anymore.
So as we wrapped up this decade of bad diversification, as we wrapped all that up, so let's fast forward now to 8 to 17, 18, 19, 20, those years in the last decade now. We had those hard conversations. It was hard for us, but we met one-on-one with a number of customers. We said, look, we love you. We actually want to keep doing your cranes, but this other stuff that you're having us do for you, it's not what we do anymore. And we're really, really sorry about that. In fact, we care so much about you. We're going to help you, recommend you to another shop who I think has the equipment and the capacity to take care of you.
Yeah,
we did a number of those things, and it was hard. And so some of the customers we were able to keep just in the crane mezzanine stair business. Others we don't do much work for them at all anymore. It's sad.
Interesting. This weekend, I talked to one of those customers, and he said they have. He said, I didn't tell you this. He mentioned something you posted on LinkedIn or something that about being more streamlined, and they streamlined their processes more. And this is Brad from Miller Brothers. He said that they build houses. We used to build construction beams for them, and he said that they got more streamlined with the type of house they're building, and they build more of a certain house style house or whatever, and they're better at those, and they're making more money at a lower dollar house than. And it's just interesting that they experience the same thing.
Yeah, anyhow. And they used to be a customer of ours. We said no to them. They're doing just fine. They found somebody else to provide beams for them and all that. So interesting stuff. But I'm going to go from the bad diversification now to the good stuff. Okay, so really what happened, the word I would say is, remember, we're going from local, small family welding shop to a national player in the game, a national
player, not leader.
Yeah, we're trying to be leaders. That's why we're doing this podcast, guys. And our marketing department felt like us talking about our story is important for us to try to be a leader in our market. And I think in many ways we are leading. We are doing some things differently than most. And that, to your point earlier, Darren, about going direct to the consumer, direct to the customer in the products we're manufacturing. I want to just throw a little caveat in there. That doesn't also mean that we don't have some great partners, resellers who are working with what we do all over the country. We have people that we're working with and doing projects with who are reselling our product. What we don't do is have territories and have restrictions on going to their next door neighbor and selling something direct as well. We make that very, very clear up front. But there are resellers who are using our products, marking it up 10%. And serving their customers that way, and we're okay with
rarely giving any discounts on that.
Yeah, fair point.
But exactly, and if the end customer sees enough value in the reseller to be involved, then they're willing, and they often do, and they're willing to pay them an extra 10-20%.
Sure,
God bless them. But the good ones stay out of the way enough, to let us serve the customer well, and they just are there to manage
us being the manufacturer, the design, the engineers, and the manufacturers of this product. We kind of know more about it than what the middleman often does, right? So that's often the confusion. What's often the confusion? I would say most of the time. I think the confusion often is just in the middleman. And you mentioned distribution. There's often, like in a lot of product lines, there's distribution, and then a dealer network, and then the customer, and the many. I mean, there's four people.
It's distribution, then the dealer, then it's the installer, then the customer. It literally that.
And there's some cases where, I mean, the companies that are way more successful than we are that are in that model, that are doing well.
But I'm not sure that model will last.
I think Tesla, I think Elon has it figured out. I think the way of the future is that. Right. I agree. So how do we go flip from bad diversification to good? Okay. And so I think our light bulb moment was, we do these three things. They're all over the wall. We have it all over the company. We call it the big three: cranes, mezzanines, fall protection, right? That's what we serve manufacturers with. The good side of diversification that we figured out is saying, hey, why do we have to do this just in Elkhart County, just in northern Indiana, just in Indiana, just in Ohio and Indiana? Why aren't we doing this all over the country? Why aren't we serving customers all over the country? And what that did was just explode our opportunities, right? So we took what we were really, really good at and said, why is this just within an hour drive or a 3-hour drive? Why aren't we doing this in New Jersey and California and Texas and Colorado and South Dakota, which we do work in? What took us so long to get there? But that was kind of the light bulb that I would say. In other words, the point here, I want to make this point clear here. There's a lot of things that helped us get from a small family farm repair shop to where we're at today, and we've not arrived, none of that at all. But where we're going, okay, we can talk about sales strategies. We talk about a lot of these things. We talk a lot about the direct to consumer. I'm just saying, when we figured out what we're the best at in the world, we said we can offer this to the country. Guess what else becomes true? Now you can actually market around that as well. That's when our marketing team essentially exploded, which is why we're doing this podcast. So they helped us. When you can clearly say, when Ryan says, this is who we are, this is what we do, and we as owners agree on what that is, when we as executives agree on who it is and who we are and what we do for our customers, then marketing can grab that story and that narrative, and they can market around that, and you can actually get leads in from around the country. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Any disagreement to that at all, or not?
No, I would say one thing that the biggest thing that we started when we started Stair Zone, which was in what year?
2020.
Yeah.
2020. Started Stair Zone, which is still it's you go on our website, and it's our stair division. And we started with that whole thing was, I just recently read, so when Tesla first started selling cars, it took, I believe it was 60 clicks. I watched this clip. It wasn't Elon Musk. It was like his the CEO of Tesla at the time, whatever. And it took 60 clicks, and him and Elon sat down and said, "Hey," and they went on they went on another website. I forget what it was. Another website they went on to that to buy like something else really simple, and it was like 12. It was like 10 clicks, whatever. They're like, how can we take these clicks away? From a car and all these options.
In other words, difficult steps to get to
simplifying the process, making the process of buying something customized easy.
Yeah,
that is the goal. And we did that. We're not there, but we're a lot further along the way. Yeah. And a really important thing is like we took away on online. If you go on stairzone.com, you buy a stairway. There's options on there, but believe it or not, we've filtered a lot of them out. So on our software internally, our Kyle sales guys can have more options to run different, but the problem is it gets too long. You want to get your list from 60 to 10. Yeah. And Tesla did that. They went from 60 to 12. I think it was 12. Either way, they reduced the amount of options by way down and made it a lot easier for people just want to buy a car. They just want to buy a car. So
just to clarify, Darren, what you're saying, I mean, just to clarify that a bit more, is that we're talking about marketing here and how once you know what you do, you can then market around what you do.
Right.
How do you market? We do everything with it for everybody. It's impossible. And so you're never going to get leads or clicks or hits 5 states away. You're never going to get that. So Kyle, talk a little bit more about what the clarity around what we do, and then the marketing towards that, what that's done for your department. Talk about the leads coming in every single day and all that. Talk about that a bit.
So basically, when we started narrowing the product line, it really helped the sales guys, the sales training process become shorter, and people could actually understand and grasp what, I always tell sales guys, the first year is just kind of swallowing information and hoping for the best, but it's not really, you you don't really know what you're doing usually until about a year in.
Yeah.
But we even consider a year in being a pretty decent win, because you can sell stuff before that, obviously, but it's really difficult to actually be confident in what you're talking about with the customer. And we know that a lot of, you have a guy that's in for 3 months in sales and he gets a call from a customer. The chances of that guy selling that job versus the guy that's been here 3 years is lower for sure.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily bad. It's part of the training process. But all I have to say is that when you have less things to think about and to learn and understand fully, you can get really good at doing those smaller things.
That's a really good pro that I didn't think about at all.
But
Streamlining what each salesman sells.
yeah, but it also, I think it's just a thing about confidently speaking to your customers. Confidence sells, and so when
Talking to your customer sells.
yes, but when you
I would say listening as well, but to their need. Yeah.
Listening is
People have a hard time picking up the phone.
Yeah. These days. Yeah.
But sometimes I've gone back and forth with that a little bit on the picking up the phone. Personally, the best thing that could ever happen to me if I reach out for, I've been sending out lots of RFQs, and I kind of like the ones that email back a quote and say, here it is. And
So hang on, backward.
Hang on. No, let me.
Wrong, false.
And a lot of the RFQs I've been sending out have actually, like if I get a call back on them, I'm fine. I want to talk to them. It's cool, and I'm maybe more likely to buy from them. But I really want results. I want answers. I want answers now, fast. The conversation.
It really depends on.
I'll give a.
It depends completely
What you're buying. Yeah,
100%. If your RFQ is for a custom crane, not sure
Darren,
if
hey Darren,
a conversation helps.
Maybe if you let me talk for 2 seconds, I could.
I apologize.
Yeah, you should. The problem with a crane system, for instance, is people are so clueless on really what they need. And you can't just tell a customer, hey, sorry, you're clueless. Let me figure this out for you. Yeah. But you have to hear and decipher from what they're telling you, what you think the best solution is for them.
Amen.
And so you have to think about that really quickly and on your feet. And they're going to tell you the wrong information. You're going to have to kind of translate into what's right. Okay, to give them the best solution, because the best solution wins. The best solution, the best price, and the promptness wins. So like I think I've talked about this with sales guys in sales training literally for hours. Is so often if you just don't bring the right solution, you heard the same comment, you heard the same conversation that a customer had with you, and he had it with 2 other guys. If they understood it differently and better, and they delivered something else, it might have been $100,000 more. But what they got was what they wanted versus what you thought was wrong. You lost. So you have to. So just doing that, and the faster we can get sales guys and project managers to that level of competence, I think is paramount.
That's a whole side of it that I missed, that I didn't think about, Kyle, as well. Like you talked about the fabricator earlier. Somebody mentioned the fabricators who also aren't maybe all A players, who can't do everything. Same with the sales team. Imagine training a sales team to build whatever you want out of steel. Hey, Mr. Customer, I want this thing built out of steel. You can't train.
Engineers, exact same thing.
Exact same thing. So the whole process is almost impossible to scale if you don't know what the heck you do and you have no idea where you're going with the product line.
I'll give a perfect example. Perfect example of that is our friends down here, Service Steel in Fort Wayne. We just put up a nice plant setup for them. And we were friendly back and forth and all that kind of stuff. And they
huge building.
Big building, lots of cranes in there. But they do a lot of structural steel. That's what they focus on. They have a beam line. They weld a lot of stuff. They're very, very efficient in what they do. They use Tekla Power Fab, they're great. Well, if they've asked us to quote some stuff for them, and we've actually asked them to quote some stuff for us, both ways. Yeah. And it's hilarious just even having the kind of conversations around it, because we both don't really totally know how to do the thing that the other guy does. And we're so to the outsider, say, you guys do pretty much the same thing. You guys weld beams and you put some steel together. Yay, whatever. Okay. But the industries are so niche. It's crazy. Yeah. So what they're doing down there, doing structural steel and they do some stairways, but in a different way that we do a little bit, that kind of thing. It's so difficult to like they're good at what they're doing. We're good at what we're doing, and that's great. It's
So the things that I'm gonna go into the other things that probably were difficult for us as well. So we now figure out who we are, where we're going, where we're heading. At least that's what it looks like, and it's we've been very, very blessed by that. I would just say it's worked. We're absolutely overwhelmed with business right now, and blessing from the Lord, and a lot of people's hard work. More than me. A lot of people have worked really, really hard to get us to this point. But we did give clarity about this is where we're going. This is where we're heading as a company. These are the products we're going to sell. It let Kyle build a team of 25 salespeople. Let Darren build a team of 25 engineers to design our product line and all that. So other things that I talk about that really were difficult going from local to national was things like staging, shipping, inventory management, install, service department. All those things also got really, really hard. And so one of the things I always say when I'm giving tours is I walk through our staging area, and we have a whole 2 bays that are just designated to staging components after they're completely done, finished, painted, decal, electrical's done, and they're staged there with a green flag or a red flag ready to ship or not ship.
Entire projects.
Entire projects are staged there, okay? What I always say is that, we used to send guys, with a crane system or a mezzanine package, whatever, to Elkhart, Indiana, to, Dowagiac, Michigan, or whatever, an hour away, whatever that was. And if they were missing 5 bolts, 9 hanger brackets, some electrical components, some touch-up paint, it never mattered. So that's probably the big shift that I saw happen that I wasn't expecting. I thought we got this. It's easy. Let's go to the nation. It wasn't easy to get there, and
Still not all figured out.
we're still not all figured out. But the problem is you could tell who's skinny dipping, when the tide goes out, right? We were skinny dipping in some areas, and that was around ERP and processes and all that. So the difference was Bob, the install guy, could come back to the job, back from the job site to the office. Next morning, he grabs 9 more bolts. He grabs a can of touch-up paint. He had everything he needed by the next morning.
All your sins are covered.
Yeah, all your sins were covered. We had it. It was easy. When we woke up and we're shipping a crane system to Phoenix, which we may have installed ourselves. I remember specifically there was a customer in Phoenix that ordered a crane system, and we literally missed an entire runway, a beam 37 feet long. It was laying right over there, and before the staging process was perfected a bit more than it is now, we literally missed stuff all the time. And guess what happens? That beam that could have fit on the truckload for free could have also cost what was it, $4,000 or $5,000 to ship that one beam from Indiana to Phoenix, Arizona.
Because Fastenal doesn't have it.
Gut-wrenching. It's gut-wrenchingly expensive when you don't have processes figured out. So that's where we stumbled and stubbed our toes at a lot, making this transition from local to national.
100%. I just think it's very important for smaller fabricators, if you're out there, or other, this is not to be steel at all, it could apply to anything, is I think you should definitely, if you're a local company and you service an hour or 2 hour radius, okay, and you're thinking about selling to other, around the country, or you're wondering what that looks like, it probably looks really, really scary. Like it's a scary proposition to say, okay, well, I'm selling something that's an hour and a half away, but what if I sold it to 10 hours away? Even if it's ship only,
yeah,
it's still scary, because they're like, well, what if they don't like it and the freight's going to be so expensive? I have a good little metric for you on this here. So PWI spends about 3 to 4% of our revenue on freight. Okay. And I don't have perfect numbers, but it's in that range. 3 to 4% of our revenue goes in freight. Okay. Which is a good chunk, but it's pretty small all in all. Now, weirdly enough,
That's more than I thought.
In stair zone specifically, the freight is way higher. So we ship an $8,000, $10,000 stair. It might cost $2,000 depending where it's going to get that thing shipped, or maybe $3,000 or $4,000 if it's West Coast. So you have on certain products that it can go from that 3% that's the average up to 30.
Yeah, 30.
Easily. It's a really. Hang on. I'm going to insert this. It's a really good reason for that because it's always LTL. It's always less than truckload for stairway. That's a good reason why. Because we're shipping 1 or 2 stairways. You can ship entire truckloads of product. The freight percentage goes way down. Then it is that way.
Yeah.
Is that a good reason why?
Yeah, kind of. It's because, well, sure, I guess you can look at it that way, but I'm saying it more like there's more value in what we're shipping. A $100,000 crane system, fits into a semi. You could even there's just more dollars there. You have components that cost more that are small and all that stuff. Okay, but yeah, it's LTL. What I'm trying to say is, if you are thinking about going national with your company, you should look at how much cost of freight is in comparison to how much revenue in your revenue. And I think that you would be surprised how many, everybody thinks, well, I could just never go national. For us, we had all these fears. We had all these like, well, how could we sell a $1 million crane system in Georgia? How could you do that? Can you imagine? And in actuality, it's a lot easier than you think. It's a lot easier than you think once you actually start doing it. You have to overcome all these different process challenges and all that stuff. But you'd be amazed at how many people are willing to buy your product and across the country.
Solely based on the experience they got from you. They got, and from the design standpoint, from the sales standpoint, did you make the process easy? Then all of a sudden, your number could be okay.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing.
What I'm trying to say,
people are looking for an easy button.
But people, I think people that are scared to go national have this. They use whatever excuse they can. Well, they're not gonna want. I don't have a guy out there to come fix their problem, so they'd never buy from me. It's gonna be the freight's gonna be so expensive. Well, is it? Did you actually pencil the numbers out? Is it actually that bad? And so what I'm trying to say is, like, in our immediate area here, we are extremely heavy manufacturing, like we talked about before in a previous episode. But there's the highest density of manufacturing employees per capita in the U.S. It's crazy. Okay, it's a lot. We have a lot of manufacturing going on here.
We do.
And what we realized is that it kind of has made all the pricing and everything kind of got honed in pretty tight in this immediate area. In a lot of situations, because there's so much competition.
Saturation.
Yeah. And so when you get outside of your area, you get to a job in North Dakota, you might have been the only guy that called him back.
Yeah.
Yes.
And here in Elkhart, Indiana, you might have had 4 guys that stopped in 2 days to visit him.
Right.
But in North Dakota, he's just happy you called him.
Sure.
And so don't think that you can't ship out. In whatever industry you're in, you'd be amazed what people will pay for and buy from you far away from you, because we're a national company. I mean, it's the internet has changed everything. They can find you, therefore they can buy from you.
So let's just grab that. I got my calculator out here. 2 points you made there. I want to just clarify. The internet. Don't miss the internet. So that we talked about the marketing around our products, using Google Ads, all that. The leads we have coming in are absolutely overwhelming, to the point where we sort through them and pick the ones that we think fit us the best. I mean, that's not
all customers are important to us.
It's not arrogance. It's just saying we think that fits us best. That one there we can pass on because we can't do that.
We follow up with every one of them, but usually there's some you can.
But you're not quoting every job that every RFQ
but a lot
get.
of them, it's not usually because I push back on that.
Okay.
We will always quote a crane system that we can feel like we can do.
Okay.
But it's more like when we see something that's outside of our scope or something that's really complex
That's what
that
I
we
meant.
can't handle.
I meant more like
I thought
that's
you meant picking and choosing people.
Well, that's pushing. If it pushes outside of what we're best at, okay, you often say no. So just for our listeners here, grab your iPhones. And so Kyle's saying, if you sell a $275,000 project 5 states away, and you take that times 0.035, let's go 3.5%. Okay, that's $96.25. So Kyle's saying approximately that project would be at $10,000 in freight, which is what, 3 truckloads, whatever. So do that math.
Obviously it varies tremendously, but yeah.
Well, it does. Yeah. But that is our average. I think it's a fair average. Is your product have enough value? Does your product have enough value to ship it 5 states away and still be competitive in the marketplace? That's what we always ask ourselves. And I look at my in-laws who build wooden trusses. My father-in-law and 2 of his brothers, they build wooden trusses for houses, for post-frame buildings, all that stuff there. And it is more difficult for them to be in that world. They can ship 2 hours away. They can't ship 2 states away because there's 5 other dudes building the same thing between here and there, and generally
or 40
in the marketplace. I mean, literally on the same highway, you can go 5 different truss shops that are built right. So I was just visiting one in Ohio last week, and so it's difficult for them to ship that far.
Freight. It's also
because the value of the commodity. It's commodity.
It's a commodity, and the freight is a way higher percentage of the cost.
So
because the cost is low.
I want to round the corner here now to
the price is low.
The other thing we talked about how hard it was to take care of staging and shipping and service and all that stuff there. Well, what that's caused us to do, and we don't have this all figured out, but we're in the process of launching our second branch now. And so what we this is another thing that happened. I said, hey, we can serve the nation. We said we can serve the nation. It's no problem. We have been for 5, 6, 7 years now. It's working. But what we also saw was that we got to be able to install for them with our crews traveling and never being with their families. That's one thing we keep seeing. Another thing we saw is when the crane breaks down, it's nice when our own team members are close by in that state. So what we're currently building is branches strategically placed around the country. We've got South Carolina launched. We've got Pennsylvania in the process of launching. The branch managers hired. The buildings purchased. All that, and we're going through all that process. I guess, Darren, talk a little bit more about why that's important, how we got to that point. Why were the branches and that going to market strategy so important as it ties together there? Does that make sense? Like, we're going direct to the consumer, which means we don't have a dealer network. Why were the branches such a big deal for us then?
Yeah, well, so the first thing is if you're not working with a dealer network, then you do have that margin to play with.
Yeah,
money wise. So is this the best way to go to market? Then we don't know. We're trying it.
Yeah.
We don't actually know.
Yeah.
It might not work. And by the way, one of I'll never forget your one friend that sells fuel. What's his name?
Toby. Buddy Toby. Yeah.
Toby
Baptiste.
Baptiste. Yeah. He has a large company. He sells fuel, and he came to PWI one day, and he's a much bigger company than us, and he sells fuel through a variety of ways. And so one thing he said was, which I thought was really good, was it varies a lot depending on the area. So in other words, if he's selling racing fuel in Texas, in certain parts of Texas, maybe those customers like buying it through a distributor. This specialized fuel, okay? But then he also sells direct to customer in North Texas, okay? Because he's playing with it all. There's not just one system, and like the whole, everybody says that, like, the whole Chick-fil-A thing. You figure out a system, and it's the same, it's repeatable and scalable, and all that stuff. That's fine, but it's not necessarily always true. It's not always
in every industry. You're saying,
right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is, what we're doing here, we're trying the dealer network because we do have that margin to play
trying
with.
a dealer network. You said that wrong.
I'm sorry. We're trying the
branch.
the branch
consumer.
with branches. Because I feel like it's all about serving our customer better. We feel like if we're putting branches where kind of hot spots for us, or hotter spots for us, then we can serve those customers better. That's what we're trying. But we're not saying we're going to have a branch every 3 hours and that's the way to go. We're trying.
But with a branch in Lancaster, Pennsylvania now, that's 2 hours from New York City. It's there's a lot of Southern Maryland. So a service tech can drive 2 hours, 3 hours and serve a customer that we sold a job to 4 years ago, 4 months ago, 2 years from now. And that's why we're doing this. We're looking at Arizona, we're looking at Texas, we're looking at Florida, we're looking at Ohio, we're looking at Fort Wayne, Indiana. A lot of things we're looking at. Not sure what's next, but there is more branches coming. That's what we're putting our eggs into right now, into that basket. And we think that our customers will ultimately get a better experience.
And also, we really, like Ryan mentioned earlier, we want our employees. We're doing these national installs. We have for years. And it's all because we have employees that are willing to travel. Yeah. And now they get compensated very well, and they should. And they make great money. And that's probably the only reason they keep doing it. And that's, they should get compensated well. Yeah. But we also want to limit that to as much as we possibly can. So
which is the goal here.
Which is the goal. So to try to do that.
A branch will now drive several hours rather than a flight day to flight day back, whatever, to install this job, hopefully. The South Carolina team will travel from Greenville or from Seneca, South Carolina, over to Atlanta, hour and a half drive to the north side of Atlanta, install a mezzanine there. Great, awesome, sweet. And we mentioned, I just want to clarify this. We mentioned stair zone a few times there, and it's great. It might be confusing. We said a big three. And so inside, we have 3 divisions essentially. We build a lot of overhead cranes. There's a dozen different types of cranes we build, okay? We build a lot of mezzanines and there's the structure, there's the guard railing, there's the stairways, there's the freight
Elevators,
elevators, all that. There's stairways,
VRCs.
VRCs. But we build the VRC is a freight elevator, and our customers usually don't understand that because it's a
Vertical reciprocating conveyor.
it's a terrible industry standard word because no customer knows what it means. So I always
Type in
say,
VRC on Google Images, nothing shows up. If you type in freight elevator,
Yeah.
exactly what we sell sells up.
I don't know if OSHA.
I'm an
demand-
engineer. I'm just trying to be
Yeah,
specific.
no, I call them VRCs, but I
Put elevator, they might ship the wrong thing out.
Yeah, right. So, but here's what I say. I say that once you're willing to narrow your focus, once you're willing to not be all things to all people, okay, I think your company can explode and could grow the way that we've been blessed. I believe there's riches in the niches, and I think that's what we've discovered. We feel like there is. We found our niche, we found our niche, and I feel like we can be the best in the world. That's not arrogant. It's saying that's our goal. We're not there yet, but we're always going to be striving to be the best in the world at what we do. And so, just as we wrap up here, I just want to encourage our listeners today. I mean, no matter where you're at, we have been there. We still don't have it all figured out. I humbly say that, but man, when you're willing to figure out what your hedgehog is, what you're most passionate about, what you're the best at in the world, and what drives your economic engine, once you're willing to figure that hedgehog principle out, I feel like there is room for you to grow and to expand and to scale your business and serve your customers a lot better. That's what we found, and so we hope you found some value today as you listen to our little story here in our little corner of Indiana. And thank you for joining us today on The Forge.